Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. And, of course, it's a Thursday. We're getting closer to the Eagles and the Buccaneers. We'll break it all down. Adam Caplan's in today. The Eagles suffering injuries. Sixers now have an injury problem. As we just told you, Jared McCain suffered a torn UCLA tear in his, not UCLA, a UCL tear in his right thumb. That will probably force him to miss the start of the season. Nolan Smith yesterday and others. We're going to talk about the Eagles and how it affects them and more right now. Adam Caplan is in for today's edition of Football at 4. Well, the hits just keep on coming for these teams all of a sudden. Adam, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I didn't know about the McCain thing. See, I know that injury a little bit. Yeah, he obviously will not be ready. Not season-ending or anything like that, but that's disappointing with McCain coming back from his torn meniscus. So, geez, the guy was so good before he got hurt. But getting to the Eagles, Mike, so the Eagles are wrapping up practice, so they won't have the injury report. Yesterday was really late, so we're hoping we get it before 6 o'clock tonight. We should be here within the next hour, but we'll see what happens. But, Mike, yeah, they have – it's just really funny. We were talking about this. Jeff and I were talking about this on our show this morning that, all of a sudden, what is with these last two Bucs teams, this one and the prior one, where Lane Johnson and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown didn't play. So we thought the Eagles were in good shape. All of a sudden, Zach Bond's got a knee injury. Jihad Campbell's got triceps. Nolan Smith, that you mentioned out of nowhere, re-injured his left triceps. He strained it. It's not torn, but when you stretch your triceps, when you strain it, you're stretching the fibers, so that's not good. So they've got a problem. Dory Jackson with the groin injury. Jacorian Bennett, Jeff saw, he watched the All-22. He did say he might have unfortunately hurt his shoulder. Now, Mike, Jacorian Bennett, although Andrew DeCecco reported that the surgery was not needed for whatever the injury is, we should mention that Jacorian Bennett has had shoulder surgeries on both. So let's hope it's not too bad. But, Mike, yeah, all of a sudden, Mike,
yep,
the Eagles have injury problems.
Yeah, obviously the big one would be right now Nolan Smith because we know he is not there. Bond, if he couldn't play, Campbell, if he couldn't play, you'd be looking at Smile Mondin and Jeremiah Trotter, I would imagine, as the linebacking core there. Adoree Jackson and Bennett. If both those guys, now we know Bennett is out. If Jackson couldn't go, I guess Ringo's name keeps coming up. Yep. They did activate Perry Nickerson. They elevated Eli Ricks to the practice squad. So they are preparing for some things here. But Nolan Smith, we know, is out. So now what? What's the plan at edge with no Nolan Smith? How big of a loss is this for the Eagles defense?
It is. He's the best edge rusher now. Za'DariusSmith has way more experience. He's much bigger physically, and that does matter. But none of their edges really without help, without blitzing last week. They just could not get consistent pressure. But when they blitzed, Fangio's blitz rate is way up this season. Why? Because he has to. We told you for the whole offseason we had concerns about their pass rush. It's come up. Vic Fangio had those same concerns because he's blitzing. They've got a problem. We expect Za'DariusSmith to see a lot of those reps. Josh Uche is very good in that third role. Now, Okonkwo, we expect him to actually play this week. Azeez Ojulari should be active, Mike. It's not a lot, but he should be. We know that they only play 3 or 4 edges anyway, but they've got to figure out a way to get a pass rush from Baker Mayfield, who, by the way, and we'll get to the Bucs injuries in a second, is playing really, really well. What a story he's been to turn out around a career where he was the first pick overall in 2018. And until he got to Tampa, Mike, he was a bust, but he's been playing really good football last couple seasons.
No, Adam, last year the Eagles, they had pass rushing, questions, and all of a sudden, Brandon Graham ended up getting hurt. But by the end of the year, their pass rushing questions kind of went away. Do they feel that they have the in-house options here for the next couple of weeks, or they already brought Za'DariusSmith in? Do they need to kick the tires outside the organization, or do you anticipate Ojulari, Uche getting some more reps?
No, that's what we just said. They're going to get those reps, Mike. But let's extrapolate and go down. You mentioned a couple weeks, so we're now in week 4. When we get to week 8, when we get to the trade deadline in 4 weeks, Mike, if it doesn't improve, and Howie Roseman loves trading draft picks, that's when you do it.
Yeah.
And they're not done at corner. They'll evaluate that one. Corner is a much bigger need than edge. I'm not saying they're set with edge. They know they're not. But they like to be able to see. They love to get Ojulari on the field. He's the guy who they signed to be that hopefully a starter. It didn't work out, or at least compete against Jalen Son. It never worked out. He's actually not playing at all this season. Okonkwo, who was signed off the street, the Browns cut him. Uche's kind of revived his career. He's a smaller, quick edge rusher. But the big one is Za'DariusSmith. He's a good football player who just turned 33. The Lions were not going to pay him. They cut him in the offseason. They did, as I'm told, they were interested in bringing him back at some point potentially. But there was a money problem there. They just didn't agree with the money he was making, and any potential for him to come back to the Lions was beat because the Eagles got him. And he's going to play a lot this week. So, and he did talk about it yesterday with the media. He knows that it's still a learning process. This is different from Jim Schwartz's 43 front. It's different from the other 34 fronts that he's played in. This is more of a five-man front. The responsibilities are different. He'll probably line up inside a little bit here. So it's going to be different. But, Mike, Howie Roseman will assess this.
Yeah.
Because one thing you got to understand, Mike, and I felt this way coming into the season, I think it's definitely true, there are no dominant football teams this season. The Ravens are disappointing, 1-2. Their defense isn't very good. The Chiefs are 1-2. The Bills are 3-0, Mike, but their defense isn't very good. So it's completely wide open, Mike, in both conferences to make another run. And the Eagles are a edge rush away right now from being a major factor. Plus, they're one of 6 teams 3-0. You could say what you want the way that they've looked, but they are 3-0.
They are, and obviously this Nolan Smith thing, as you said, it kind of came out of nowhere. Hey, all of a sudden he's on the injured list, and he is out now. So we will watch closely to see what they do to replace him, how they kind of divvy up those snaps this week. And obviously that means someone's going to flip to the other side too, right? I mean, that's the other thing is he primarily took one side, and then Hunt and the other guys kind of rotated. But he was pretty much getting a bulk of the snaps where the other guys have kind of been rotating, right?
Well, you talking about edge?
Right, when you look at Nolan Smith on the one side of the field.
Oh, you said Nolan Smith. Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Yes. So, look, that's going to be their plan. Za'Darius should be able to play both sides, and that's what they're going to have to do, play the left side. Hunt's their right edge rusher.
Okay.
And then, of course, you got the cornerback position, which is absolutely decimated. Mike, look, Mike Evans is not going to play with his grade 1+ hamstring strain. He's had major hamstring challenges over his career. That's really the one injury he's had since college, since Texas A&M. He's had constant hamstring problems. But yeah, they've got a problem. Opposite Quinyon Mitchell. It's not like we didn't know that before the season started. You mentioned Adoree Jackson earlier here, Mike, and we know it's going to be a struggle with Adoree. He hasn't played particularly well. He's been up and down, and you look at the situation now with what they have with Ja'Cory Bennett going on IR. Then the next up is Keely Ringo. Now, Ringo, he was beaten out soundly. We know that. It wasn't close in training camp for the second straight summer. It was over very early. He was actually at times running third team. So Perry Nickerson was added from their practice squad. He's a nickel. He's a shorter corner. Mm-hmm. Ringo's got ideal speed and length, but as we reported at the time when he was drafted, personnel people told us he had significant stiffness in his lower hips. It's still there. Can't get rid of it. He runs well in a straight line. He has trouble stopping, as Greg Cosell told us. So these are the issues, folks. But you're not going to have to. The Eagles will not have to face Mike Evans. Look for Emeka Egbuka to play that X position. If Chris Godwin plays, and the Bucs are very optimistic that he will, it would make more sense to him to play inside. Nothing's set yet, but it would make more sense. And that's it. They don't have great depth because Jalen McMillan, a third rounder a couple years ago, who would be the third receiver this week, he's on injury reserve. So they're down 2 receivers. This absolutely helps the Eagles. There's no question about it. If Mike Evans was playing, and I know I'm not on tomorrow, Andrew is, I would be, if Mike Evans was playing, I'd probably pick the Bucs. But without him, Mike, you could say what you want. I know the Eagles have problems at corner opposite Mitchell, but that you don't have to worry about Mike Evans and his strength. He's an incredible football player and a surefire Hall of Famer someday.
Yeah, and, the Eagles had struggles with Tampa Bay. But one of the big things is A.J. Brown has not played. Last year, A.J. Smith and Lane Johnson did not play in those games. That does change the perplexion. But one of the things, and we played this last hour, Chris Canty was talking about this morning, which is, and I want to get your opinion on this, is, he says a team like Tampa has given them problems because, of now, of course, they've missed key personnel, but that they're willing to be physical enough with the Eagles where a lot of teams can't match, like the Rams, can't match their physicality.
Yeah, well, look, you could throw out week 4 last year at 1 o'clock with those 3 key players on offense. It has no relevance to me. It means nothing to me when you're evaluating the game because they didn't Smitty and Brown didn't play, Lane Johnson. Of course they can't compete. That game was a blowout. I remember thinking, like, maybe because the Eagles are so competitive, they can I picked the Bucs to win, but I thought they could make it close. No, it was 33-16. Now, let's go to that playoff game, Mike. You mentioned what happened. Now, this is in the midst of the Eagles being an absolute train wreck, and they lost 32-9, Mike. That was just really, really bad, Mike. I mean, that was they were not competitive, and you might remember some years ago, also when they played the Bucs. That's when who is the guy? Ryan Kerrigan, was signed, and then Josh Sweat wound up not playing to that illness that came up crazy right before the game. It was very serious, but he obviously was fine afterwards. But yeah, context matters, man. You don't get that on the internet or social media. People never use context or rarely do. But this is the context. I'm not a cheerleader. I call it down the middle. It has no consequence who wins or loses to me, although it's good for Inside the Birds if the Eagles win more than they lose. But you got to have context. So, again, throw last year out. Both teams have significant injury concerns. Mike Evans is a major one. Oh, but now the Bucs do believe that Tristan Wirfs, their all-pro left tackle, has a very good chance of playing, but they won't know until after Friday's practice. They seem to be more optimistic on Godwin, but they have to go through the next 2 days. And I do want to mention this. We're going to talk more about this on our pregame show with Greg Cosell. They have 5 starting offensive line changes from last season due to injury. Their center, Graham Barton, has moved to left tackle. Elijah Klein's at left guard. He started his first NFL game. Ben Bredesen, who was going to play guard, is playing center. They signed a kid off their practice squad last week, Luke Haggard, who started right guard. Charlie Heck, who was going to back up a left tackle, he moved to right tackle. For Luka Decky, who's on injury reserve. So, Mike, hey, I don't know if it's not playing, but this is an advantage for the Eagles. Let's be real here.
Well, especially in a week when you're like a pass rusher, right? I mean, hey, you're down a pass rusher. They're down multiple offensive linemen here. So you got to figure out a way to get through these 4 weeks here. Yeah. It all starts this Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By the way, they're the only team since the merger who has won on the last possession each of their first 3 wins that turned out to be wins for them. So they are kind of scratching and clawing with these victories, much like the Eagles have been. They've had a lot of close, wonky finishes. In fact, they had a blocked field goal in their game that almost cost them last week. So that's an area of this game to watch, right, Adam, is special teams.
It is. Now, the Eagles have to, and I know they're working on it, the 5 mishandled kickoffs. They're lucky they didn't fumble it. They just because they're wobblers. It's the way that it's a strategy that some teams employ, where they pop it up and the ball wobbles, and you have to be better with ball security. But Braden Mann's been phenomenal as a punter. Jake Elliott's back; he's been great. They got to be better just overall in kickoff returns. They're just not very good at it, and that's something that they have to continue to work with. But overall, it's a really good football team. They somehow they're 3-0. I know some people are like, I feel like it's 2023 all over again. Let's have more information. Let them get healthier. But folks, we know going into the season, edge was a problem. The corner position opposite Mitchell was a problem. That's not changing right now. And Howie Roseman I'm sure will address it if he's not happy by the trade deadline. He always does when he can.
All right. And they have a lot of ammunition, draft picks to make something happen. We'll keep an eye on that. Adam Caplan pinch hitting for Andrew today. Andrew will be on tomorrow's show for football at 4 right here on the Sports Bash when we get a look closer at the matchups to watch between the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Adam, thanks, man.
You got it. Thank you.